Hey guys, it's Choco the Chocobo here, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the weapons, the weapons section of the recipes slash upgrades. So not just every weapon, but just the weapons section. Do note that this doesn't mean it includes all the weapons. They just made it because that's the easiest thing to categorize them as, so bear that in mind. A little bit about this section is that this is primarily things that modify your damage in some way, shape, or form. And they mostly have an aggressive slash offensive use, but some of them do have defensive attributes, so keep that in mind. But yeah, just kind of keep in mind that these are mostly for attacking people. They'll modify your auto attacks most of the time, so that's that. Anyways, let's get right into it. I'm going to talk about all the ones with actives first, just because that I want to show you guys what that is real quick. So if you just kind of want to read the rest of it, you can. The first item we have on the chopping block here is a good old Shadow Blade. This allows you to kind of go invisible, at least stealth. I'll click on it for you guys so you can see the components. But basically, you can use this to get yourself out of hairy situations, or to kind of scout around, or even engage an enemy. You'll notice that there's 150 damage that it does upon breaking the invisibility. So, if I'm running around invisible here, I'm going to get a movement speed boost, and then whenever I attack something coming out of movement speed, I inflict an extra 150 damage. Which, did that work? Didn't seem like it did. Yeah. Oh, there we go. What the shrimp was that? Okay. Anyways, but yeah, it does a little bit of extra damage. Very handy. If you get this early in the game, it actually turns like a mini nuke, which is weird, but can be very helpful for kind of eluding enemies and engaging them and picking them off. Very, very good item. Be aware that you are prone to Sentry, Dust, and Chronicon level 3 and a bunch of other stuff, so just be careful with it. So that's Shadow Blade, pretty straightforward. Now the Ethereal Blade is a little bit weird. Ethereal Blade, what it does is it kind of does this thing. Here, I'm just going to demonstrate it really quick. You see how that guy just instantly died, and I turned to like that weird ghost thing? It's like having the Ghost Scepter go off on you, and that you are turned into an ethereal form, and you take more magic damage in that form, but at the same time, you are not able to be targeted by kind of regular attacks, which can be very handy, can be very helpful. But the other side of it is that it does 2 times your attribute, like your main attribute, plus 75 damage. That means you can technically get this on a strength hero, and if he has lots of strength, he will go absolutely ham taro on people. I've seen Pudges who are just like really built, and they have an Ethereal Blade and the Aghanim Scepter, and it is the world's worst possible thing that could happen to you. I'm going to demonstrate on this on a little bit of a higher level creep. You'll see that he goes Ethereal too. They don't target me because I'm Ethereal as well, but it's pretty handy. It'll amplify the magic damage they take, and it does a fair bit of damage. So that's that. Pretty straightforward. You'll notice that there's more agility in this item, and that's because this is designed to help heroes who are going, the agility stat kind of builds. And that's kind of to say, like, there's an item called Manta Style, which is covered in a different video, but what Manta Style will do is all your illusions gain the agility, like the stat damage. They don't gain anything from like actual weapons. So a broadsword, for example, wouldn't be reflected in your actual illusion. On the other hand, if you have an eagle horn, that will be. So the idea here is that it gave agility heroes both an escape technique as well as a little nuke to kind of use and abuse and whatnot. So it's a little bit handy. Something to think about. It has a 3-second duration and a 30-second cooldown, so it's not too bad. It's not very demanding. But at the same time, definitely something that's a very niche item. I wouldn't go for this every time. Next, we have Radiance, which is an interesting item. I personally am not a huge fan of it, but oh well. What it can do is it adds a pretty monstrous amount of damage, right? So it's made from a sacred relic in this recipe. It's a pretty expensive item, not terribly expensive, but pretty expensive. And the idea here is that it gives you this damage, but it also gives you an immolation effect, or something that lets you kind of burn down enemies that are around you. And it's a sizable radius, right? So you can turn this on and off. I have it off right now, but if you turn it on, you'll notice I start glowing orange, and these guys start taking damage kind of out of nowhere. That's the Radiance effect. Note that you can shut it off to kind of hide yourself from enemies so you don't give yourself away. You can use it in conjunction with a Shadow Blade and stuff like that, kind of annoy enemies, because the Radiance effect is always going unless you shut it off. But you can't toggle it while you're stealthed, right? So just keep that in mind. But definitely something that can be helpful depending upon your hero. They did take out the evasion, it looks like, so that's gone. But if you think that can be helpful, by all means go for it. It is a pretty handy item. It should also be noted that I think this goes on illusions as well, so you can harass people with it. Whether or not it's worth it, that's up to you to decide. But that's Radiance in a nutshell. The last one we have for in terms of having an active ability is the Abyssal Blade. This guy is made from a Basher as well as a Sacred Relic, and what this will do, besides adding a monstrous 100 damage to you, and 10 strength, which isn't too bad, you have the ability to keep the Basher stunned, right? And that doesn't change. But you also have another thing, which is an active ability that stuns them through any kind of magic immunity. I think there are some weird exceptions to this rule, but basically you can just stun anyone you want, cast it on an enemy, bam, that stun goes down. Ooh, they added an animation. Oh, that's new. It's a pretty sizable cooldown, so keep that in mind, but that stun can be incredibly helpful to disable a BKB user. It'll wreck their day. Also, can be pretty handy if you're someone with very high attack speed, right? Because your bashes are going off, and you can actually use the active to stun lock them for about like 5 seconds if you're lucky. So it's pretty good. It's nothing to overlook. So keep that in mind. All right. So now that we're done with talking about the active stuff, let's kind of backtrack here and talk about anything that wasn't an active. That just kind of is what it is. I'm going to start off by talking about the Basher, just because we talked about the Abyssal Blade. So the Basher, as you can see here, what it does is it gives you a chance to stun them on hit. It's just like the Abyssal Blade, so pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you have a higher attack speed, it helps you more. If you're a ranged hero, there's a slightly lower chance that you get to hit that stun, but the stun duration is exactly the same, so do not underestimate this on a ranged hero. It can be pretty handy, actually, so something to keep in mind. It does add a fair bit of damage, even at level 1, in terms of like being just a Skull Basher, not an Abyssal Blade. So, pretty handy. Crystallis. Oh, and I forgot one of my favorite items. How could I forget? What are you doing, Chocobo? Elated in the pack astray. But anyways, I'm getting my favorite item in the whole wide game, apparently. Let me talk about Crystallis and Daedalus. Crystallis is something that gives you a bit of a damage boost, right? You can see the components down below. But what it's really known for is the ability for you to now crit. Even heroes without a crit chance now have the chance to actually crit an enemy, which is a huge, huge difference in that it does 175% of the damage that you normally do. This can later be built into a Daedalus, right? And this sucker, so here it's a 20% chance for 175. Whenever you upgrade to a Daedalus, it's, number one, there's a damage boost. Number two, it goes to 25% chance to a 240% crit. An incredibly damaging item. If you do a lot of hit, like a lot of damage per hit, this can be a huge game changer. Because you'll suddenly be doing a ton more damage than normal, and you can throw people off. So that's Crystallis, that's Daedalus. And let's move on to Armlet. And this one has an active ability. I have no idea how I overlooked it. I guess I thought it was defensive because I always think of it as a defensive item. But the Armlet of Modrigan, this beastly item is is something that you can almost measure how good you are at Dota by your ability to consciously think about the Armlet. It's a pretty good way to measure how you are in the game. But basically, when it's not active, it has those stats that you see below. 9 damage, 15 attack speed, 5 armor, 8 HP, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? But the important part here isn't that. It's the fact that whenever you activate it, you gain Unholy Strength. It'll drain your HP by 40 a second, so it can be damaging. It'll never kill you, so you can't deny yourself. But it will drain you down 1 HP, so be careful. But what it does, it will give you 31 extra damage, 10 attack speed, and 25 strength. On strength heroes, this is incredible because you get the attack speed and you get a little bit more damage and bulkiness. And I mean, by a little bit of damage, I mean a lot more damage, right? Because think about it this way. If you just change that 25 strength into just damage, because it is, for a strength hero anyways, then you get an extra 56 damage at the earlier part of the game. That can be devastating. The other handy part about this Modrigan, oh my goodness. You see Abyssal Blade, you beast! Stop killing everyone. Wait, dadgummit, don't hit him. Okay. You all are too weak. Away with you. I have no strong volunteers, no hardy volunteers. But whenever you activate it, you can see it slowly draining my HP. This obviously is going to be a little more impactful if you're level 1 or something low. So you do want to be conscious about it. And you will retain the damage. You don't just kind of like LOL heal it back. But in exchange for that, something really cool happens, right? So I'm going to pick a fight with Roshan here, and hopefully he can help me out and do some real damage on me. That's right, Roshan. But you can actually use this to gain a little bit of health back. So I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate right now. If you're limping away and you're damaged and you have the Armlet, you can pop it, and you'll get a good bit of HP back. It can toggle this as many times as you want. It has a 2-second cooldown, so you can't like super spam it, but this can be pretty huge in terms of bringing you back from the dead. Or just letting you survive like a random nuke. So like let's say a clockwork shooting a rocket at you and you just need to survive that one hit. You toggle that bad boy, you're good to go. Very huge deal, very important to have and understand in terms of if you're a strength hero and you like playing strength heroes, because this can be a huge game changer and a lot of people will use it, so you should be aware of it. I'm going to fortify because I don't want to lose while I'm doing this commentary, or not commentary but guide. So anyways, that's the Armlet Munchkin. Talking about the Basher, Shadow Blade's done. Battle Fury. Battle Fury, very straightforward. Whenever you hit as a melee hero, only melee, so ranged units cannot do this, but if you're a melee hero, you get this pretty giant cleave, right? So regardless of who you are, you get those stats. You get 65 damage, 6 HP, and 150% mana regen because you have a Perseverance as a component. So you can see that here. That's all fine and dandy. That will actually work on a ranged hero, but the cleave will not. The cleave, anything that you strike as a melee hero, 225 AoE around that particular target, they will also take damage. Very, very big deal in terms of, if you have a single target kind of hero, and suddenly you weren't able to push lanes before, but after you get a Battle Fury, you're going to be beast mode. Because if you used to do like 500 damage to creeps, everything around it can be taking like 135 or something like that. I don't really know the number off the top of my head, but yeah, it'll be huge. So definitely keep an eye out for this item. Like, I know Phantom Assassins love this item to death. There are a good number of other heroes that love this, especially if you already have a cleave, because this actually stacks. So, fun facts. Good to know, right? It is possible to stack multiple Battle Furies, by the way, and the cleave damage will stack on itself to the point where if you get past up the number, 3, you will actually do more damage to the units around the primary unit of attack. This can be really weird when you have like a Sven doing this or a Magnus, because it ruins people's days. You can attack a creep, and that damage is multiplied onto the hero, and they just don't enjoy it. But handy to know, good to have. We talked about the Ethereal Blade, we talked about Radiance. Monkey King Bar. Monkey King Bar is the other weapon besides the Daedalus and Divine Rapier. And I'm not really treating Divine as a real weapon right now because of its weird property, but this is actually it's a little bit more damage in terms of what it gives you, but the attack speed boost, in terms of giving you a straight extra bit of damage, this is probably the best item there is. That said, Daedalus's crit will make it kind of do more for your buck, but if you already have a crit, stuff like that, Monkey King Bar is a good way to go. Now, there are two important things about this item, right? Number one is the mini bash. So it's not like a full-blown bash for 1 point whatever seconds. It's like a really, really tiny one that can break channeling spells and junk like that. So like if an enemy's TPing out and you hit them and you get the mini stun, it will break it, which is very, very handy in and of itself, but you'll also get an extra 100 damage for pulling it off. Now, the true strike, which you'll actually see there, is it basically stops you from ever missing an attack. This is really, really important if you're up against a hero like a Rikimaru who's dropping smoke and stuff. Because if you're able to hit through that, or if you're like a ranged hero shooting uphill, you'll never miss an attack, which is huge. Because that makes sure that all your hits land, you will have a more consistent flow of damage, you'll be able to read it more accurately. Very, very good item. Highly recommend Monkey King Bar. Monkey King Bar and a Daedalus together, it's rough. It's a lot of damage to be putting out there. So yeah, it's a pretty good item. You can see the components, very handy. Talk about the Daedalus. Butterfly. Butterfly is a cool item. It can be used actually defensively or aggressively. But basically the Butterfly is something that is designed for agility heroes. It gives you that 30 agility because it has an eagle horn as a component. It gives you 30 damage, which is nice. But it also gives you the 35% evasion. If you look at the Talisman of Evasion, it's 25%. It's a whopping 10% more. Monkey King Bar will counter this, but unless people have a way to hit you like guaranteed, this can really mess people up. You can dodge a fair bit of attacks, which can ruin some people's days. It is a little bit random, so you have to forgive that. But at the same time, if you have a Butterfly, you know that it's going to be a good time. You'll also get a 30 attack speed boost, which is 2 Gloves of Haste, which is handy and great. And plus you have 30 agility, so you're already gaining an extra 30 attack speed from that. And God knows what will happen if you keep it going. And it's a pretty beastly item. Granted, it is very expensive, right? These items are getting really costly as we're going down the line. But anyways, that's Butterfly. The Divine Rapier, the last item in here, and kind of the pinnacle of all damage items, it gives you a whopping 300 damage. And basically the way this works is that, you can see the components down here. It's a Sacred Relic and a Demon Edge. Ridiculous. But if you have a Divine Rapier, you are going to be given a 300 damage buff. It'll act as a regular item. Catch is, it's like a gem. Whenever you die, you drop it. And the other part of this is that if you drop it, if your teammates pick it up, it's not going to work for them. It's weird. So if you die and recover it, that's fine. If you die and someone else on your team recovers it, it's going to have that little like stop sign or whatever. That's like, you can't use this item. I remember like the do not smoke sign. But yeah, it's it will prohibit you from actually getting the benefit of this. And it'll still drop upon death. So it's a pretty risky thing to have, because if it goes to the enemy team, they can use it immediately. They can just pick it up and go, and they'll get the damage benefit. Now, if they die with a Divine Rapier, so again, if you die with it first, then the enemy picks it up, it's in play. If the enemy dies after you have died with it, then it is put back into play for both teams. Pretty weird in that way, in terms of it can be a really back and forth item. Very few heroes can use this effectively without being in too much danger, but definitely something to keep in mind if you are steamrolling and you want to like absolutely clinch the crap out of your victory. It can also be one of the biggest ways to throw a match. I've seen matches where people get really cocky and arrogant. They're like, oh, I have 2 Divine Rapiers, I can do whatever I want. And they get stunned, CC'd, and the enemy team takes it and they just steamroll down a lane, because that 300 damage is huge, it's massive. So definitely something to keep in mind. Also note that if you have this in a Daedalus, you're going to be critting for quite a bit. But anyways, guys, that's all for the weapons section of Dota 2's items. Please let me know what you thought about the video in the comments below, and I will see you guys later. So have a great day, guys. Ciao.